Every year, woodworkers like you and me spend billions of dollars on stains and finishes from big box stores. So today we're going to put to the test finishes you can already find around your house or at the grocery store. And every time we use a new finish, I'm going to give it a rating on a scale from 1 to 10. But before we do that, for the sake of saving some time, I'm going to give you a quick list of finishes that I tried today that definitely do not work. Sunscreen, gunpowder, whipped cream, Elmer's all-purpose glue. And before we get into number 1, I know you guys are asking, who is this guy? Where's Peter? Peter is on vacation this week, and I'm actually gonna flip that question around on you guys. Am I A, Peter's uncle, B, Peter's dad, C, the editor for the channel, or D, the guy who murdered Peter and took over the channel? Leave your comment down below who you think I am, and let's get into finishing some wood with some random I found around the house. Up first, we have olive oil. Now, I started with olive oil because I felt the most confident about it of anything on this list. And to that you may ask why I felt confident about anything on this list, as it looks like a grocery list. But olive oil shares the most amount of properties with a normal finish that we would tend to use in the shop. It is in fact an oil, so maybe it'll work similarly. You can see here it's immediately starting to pop that grain out, and I was pretty impressed with the protective coat it gave over the top. It's got a nice kind of glossy, almost polyurethane type look to it. And this was a good place to start because it worked pretty well. And this is what it looks like, all coated. You can see it's got a nice glimmer to it now, and that grain's really popped out. So for olive oil, we're gonna go ahead and give it a rating of 8.5 out of 10. Next up, soy sauce. This one is probably gonna go on the list as the most surprising of anything that I tried today. When you look at a bottle of soy sauce, it has a super deep brown, almost black look to it, and that's what I thought it was going to do to this piece of wood. But as soon as I started getting some of the soy sauce on there, I noticed pretty much immediately that the wood was turning this sort of brown, almost yellowish tint. And this to me sort of looks like a lot of applications of bamboo that I've seen. And I think that's super cool, and I think this could look really, really nice on a full project. I will say it reeks of soy sauce, so if you really like Asian food, this may be the finish for you. But yeah, I wouldn't say this is really popping the grain out too much. I'd say it's almost hiding it with that color, but the color is pretty cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and give soy sauce about a 6 out of 10. Next one on the list, wine. This one I was probably the most excited for. I went to the grocery store to pick up a couple items for this video and was looking through the wine section. I figured I could probably get away with getting the cheapest wine possible, so this is what I found on the bottom shelf there for $8.99. And I'm no wine connoisseur, but I can tell you, you do get what you pay for. But I'm pretty excited to get it on this wood and see what it looks like. And this is one of the ones on the list that when you're first putting it on, it doesn't quite look like how it's gonna end up. As you kind of rub that in, you'll see it gets a little bit lighter and turns to more of a pinkish purple, which I'm immediately really liking that color. It sort of reminds me of like the cherry blossoms that bloom in Japan every year, which is really cool. And I think a whole project with this finish on it could look incredible. This is my favorite that we've done so far on the list. I'm gonna go ahead and give this a 9 out of 10. As I think this color is really cool, and it still looks like wood. It just sort of looks like pink wood, which I think is really unique, and there's not a lot of finishes out there that could replicate it. Next up, we have charcoal. Now, charcoal is actually used pretty common on wood. I've seen it done before, but I wanted to give it a go with a little bit of a twist. So I took some charcoal pieces from our fireplace, I crushed them up into a dust, and then I actually took some of the olive oil from the first stain that we used, and I mixed it in with the charcoal until there was sort of a paste. And I started applying this paste to the wood, and you really want to rub this in pretty thoroughly. You want to make sure that the charcoal is filling the wood grain below, and some of the olive oil is seeping in as well. So I really rubbed this in, and then what I did is I took a clean paper towel and I wiped it clean, and this is what you end up with. I would say this finish is comparable to some of the colored stains you can get off the shelves at the store, which is pretty cool considering the charcoal was free and I probably used about 4 cents of olive oil to get this stain. I also think a coat of poly to seal this all in would really, really help and make it look really cool. So I could see myself using this in the future for something, and so for that, I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10. Up next, we have maple syrup. Now, did I think this finish was gonna work well? Not really. Do I live in Vermont and felt like I had to try maple syrup on a piece of wood to see what it looked like? Absolutely. I wasn't super confident this was gonna work, and pretty much immediately I realized I was probably right. This is not working that well. My hands are super sticky. The wood is super sticky. It does sort of pop the grain a little bit, almost like the olive oil did, but it leaves a pretty hefty coat of crystallized sugar over the top. And I'm sure you could maybe sand this down, but again, I just don't think this is worth it. So maple syrup, as much as it pains me to say as a Vermonter, is gonna get a 2 out of 10 on the scale. Up next, coffee. Now, coffee is actually a finish I have used before on past projects. I used to finish guitar necks with coffee grounds and a little bit of water. So yeah, these grounds are straight from a coffee filter. I went ahead and I just started lathering them on there. And one thing to note about using coffee for a finish is you do need to let those grounds and coffee sink in there for at least a half hour to an hour, and it's not gonna take as much as you think it is. This is gonna just sort of darken up the finish of the wood, bring out the grain, and make it smell incredible if you like coffee. I will say I'm slightly disappointed with how much it did not take to the wood. I was hoping for a darker brown, but I think this is still a really nice color, and if you wanted to try something different on your projects, this would be a good option. So yeah, again, it pains me as a big coffee drinker, but for coffee, as a wood stain, I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 10. Next up, we have cherry juice. Now initially, I wasn't going to include this in the list as I thought it might be too close to the wine color. And I started getting the juice on there and pretty much immediately thought, yeah, you were pretty right. It's pretty similar to the wine color. But you can see this is soaking in quite a bit more than the wine did, and it is a slightly different shade of pink. And once I finished up the cherry juice across that whole piece of wood, I put them side by side to see how close they really are to each other. So this is the cherry and this is the wine. The labels I put on there took a little bit of the stain off, but you can see this is a slightly deeper sort of purple thing going on, and this has kind of a lighter, more subtle pink. So I actually think the cherry could be a good alternative to the wine, as it's probably less expensive to buy a bunch of cherry juice than it is to buy a bunch of wine for your project. So I'm gonna go ahead and give the cherry a 6.5 out of 10. Next up, strawberries. Now, I'll make a confession here that I did a bunch of research for all of these other different finishes. This one was more for my curiosity. I took a couple good-sized strawberries, put them in a cup, and started mashing them up to get sort of a paste that I could apply to the wood. So once I had sort of a chunky puree, I went ahead and started applying that to the wood. And as I'm getting it on there, I realized I should probably let this sit for a while to see if it'll soak into the grain more. I'm trying to spread out the chunks as evenly as I can. I still think this is gonna look pretty blotchy because there's just different amount of strawberry across the piece of wood. And I would turn out to be completely correct. Strawberries, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 2 out of 10. I just don't see this being a reasonable stain. So yeah, guys, that is a bunch of finishes from your house that you can use to finish wood. Definitely a couple in there that you probably shouldn't, but it was an experiment today and we found a bunch that looked awesome, which is great. And this video was sort of an experiment in a couple different ways. One, Peter was on vacation and he was like, "You wanna film a video?" And I was like, okay. I'm pretty used to being behind the camera, so let me know how I was in front of the camera this time. But I had fun making it. So if you want to see more John Solo videos, let us know in the comments below so Peter will let me out of my cage more often. And yeah, we will be back next week. Peter will be in front of the camera. We will have an awesome build for you. Oh my God, I just realized I need a pencil. I've never thrown the pencil before. Pretty excited for this. That is gonna do it. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any other videos you'd like us to make, go ahead and leave that comment down below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And also tell Peter you wanna see more of me in front of the camera. All right. What does he say? We'll see you in the next one. If you guys liked that video, I bet you'll like to see us do a challenge with Boondock Builds with one 2x4, or you can watch whatever YouTube thinks you should watch from our channel right here.